Good afternoon, all of you. It's a pleasure to see so many participants attending this session. I hope you have had a great morning so far. There have been some phenomenal sessions, although I haven't been able to attend all of them because of the time conflicts. But I again hope that you do find some value in today's session here. I have titled it Fostering Academic Integrity in the Age of AI. So Academic Integrity AI in the Age of AI. So I will do my presentation in a 3-act kind of structure. Some of my colleagues who are attending this presentation know that I am a movie buff, so I love movies, and most movies tend to follow a 3-act structure. So these will be the 3 acts: AI versus AI, AI versus AI, and finally AI on AI. I would have loved to have a 5-act structure that was the favorite of Shakespeare, but then we don't have as much time. In any case, so Act 1 is the inciting incident. So I have been researching the area of ethics for quite some time. That is a topic that is pretty close to my heart. But I got interested on the topic of artificial intelligence earlier this year when one of my students, who was not necessarily a very good student, so maybe about average or slightly below average performance, and this is based on the grades that he had received on the assignments and the first term midterm exam. But on the second midterm exam, he answered the question that I had asked, and these were essay type questions that I had created specifically for this exam. So these were not questions from the textbook as such. So these are, it's a case that I did write up specifically for the exam, and I asked the students to solve the issues described in the case and provide the rationale for the recommendations that they were making. And this particular student had a phenomenal answer, and that was really surprising to me. And that was around the time that there was a lot of discussion happening about ChatGPT. So what I did was that I pasted the same case that I had written on ChatGPT with the same set of questions, and lo and behold, I got a great response from ChatGPT. Now, the response was not exactly the same as what my student had shared, because again, ChatGPT and other generative AI tools, they customize the answer. They are not exactly always the same. Even if you give the same prompt, it will give different answers. So I couldn't necessarily say with definitiveness that this student had plagiarized. But at a personal level, in my mind, I was pretty confident that the student had plagiarized using AI tools. So I did try to meet with the student, and the student kept giving excuses that he's busy, he's traveling. So we never ultimately got to meet. Although in the later exams, I did make certain modifications. I emphasized that they cannot be using AI, and most of the questions were from my lectures as opposed to from the textbook. So they had to connect everything from what they had learned in my lectures. And those lectures were available on video. And that's where the student floundered. Ultimately, the student failed, even though I still gave the student full credit for the second midterm exam where he had like 98 or certain percentage. In any case, so this was the incident that made me think about what's happening, what can we do to address the challenges that have come from AI. When COVID-19 pandemic hit, we moved many of our classes to the online platform. And here, AI was posing a unique challenge where any classes that we were holding online, it was very difficult to monitor the quality of the work that students were submitting. We were never sure if it was students who actually wrote it or if it was something that AI generated. My primary question was, is a use of AI something of a academic misconduct? That's the question that I was asking. And so we could argue that yes, it is, right? Because it is intellectual dishonesty. If you are not attributing your source, if you are not acknowledging the use of AI in your response, then it is intellectual dishonesty. And if AI is not being used by everyone in your class, if it is just one student or few students who are using, then it gives them an unfair advantage over those who are not using AI. So again, that's a problematic issue. It undermines the assessment process because the assessment process is supposed to evaluate the students' knowledge, abilities, and skills. So if it can give a false impression about the students' knowledge, ability, and skills. And not just that, it undermines learning. Again, without going into the neuroscience of things, AI can make things really easy. So instead of actively engaging in the learning process, instead of engaging in the critical thinking and problem solving abilities that we want our students to develop, students can use AI and find quick answers, which undermines the very learning process that we value so much. And at a broader level, it erodes the educational values. Similar to what I was talking before, education is not just about getting great grades or a degree or knowing the right answers. It's also about developing the character strengths that are associated with learning, like sticking to a difficult problem, even if it is difficult. And these things can get eroded if there's a huge use of AI. On the other hand, AI can be seen as a very valid use in academic context. So it is not necessarily misconduct. We could argue that AI is just a tool like calculators. Many of us are statisticians like SPSS, like a physician uses a stethoscope. So we do not necessarily say anyone using SPSS to be engaging in academic misconduct. It is just a tool. And we could also argue that AI enhances skills, and we should actually be teaching our students to use AI, and especially because it has a lot of real world relevance. Companies do not care about how you arrive at solutions often, as long as you are meeting the legal requirements. So we should, from that perspective, be helping prepare students to use AI for their future careers. Similar arguments could also be made in favor of assistive technology. It makes learning accessible to people with disability. Certain people may have different kinds of strengths, some in quantitative reasoning, some in qualitative, some in verbal reasoning. So it makes things individualized. So as long as we have a transparent process, what's wrong in using AI? And the last reasoning that, again, I have been hearing also today in the presentation is we could use AI for the assessment purpose, like through the use of Turnitin and other programs, which should remove some of the concerns that we have about AI. And as I was thinking, as I was diving deep into this issue, I got confronted with a reality that I would like to share with you. So we know the language generative AI models like ChatGPT, Claude, and others. And we are also aware of the plagiarism detection tools or AI detection tools like Turnitin, Originality AI, ChatGPT Zero, and other such models. Now, this is an essay that I just wrote. I gave the prompt to ChatGPT, write a 300-word essay on the importance of developing leadership skills in the university students. And this is a website called undetectable.ai. I pasted this here, so let me say agree, check for AI. And what is the score that I'm getting? The content is detected as written by AI, right? But it has another button. It has called humanize. So it will rewrite, I don't have I think I have already tried it, so it's not allowing me to. But it will, if you have the paid version, it's not very expensive, just $5 per month. It will rewrite this essay in a way that will prevent the detection of the use of AI. And there are many such similar tools like Cogni Bypass, again, which rewrites the material generated by AI in a way that makes detection impossible. So now it's a battle between different AI tools. So we have AI evasion tools that use AI to evade student having used AI. And another thing that I would like to share here is a news report that just got published maybe just about 10 days ago. Microsoft is coming up with their own AI generative model called Copilot, and they are willing to provide legal protection to all their customers who could potentially be sued for copyright infringement. So they are so confident in their AI generative tool that they are willing to provide legal protection to their customers who are using AI. So in other words, if a company, such a huge company, is being able to provide legal protection, you could imagine how difficult it is going to be detect AI usage in students. And there are numerous tools that are coming up every day. This is a website that is maintained by this person named Matt Wolf. As of this morning, it was showing 2,233 different AI tools in different categories. So it's just impossible to keep up with AI. So how do we resolve the situation? That's the academic insight that I would like to share here. Again, not necessarily definitive answers about this is exactly how we are going to resolve, but hopefully it makes you think about some possible ways that we could approach the challenges that come from AI. So currently, again, if you have been following the discussion about higher education, there's a lot of discussion that is happening about even the validity of university education, because there are a lot of online platforms existing like Coursera, like Udacity, Skillshare, and so on and so forth, that provide a real good quality learning experience to students at a fraction of a cost that students pay for a university education. So what does a Purdue degree provide that these online platforms do not? There is a sense of legitimacy. There is a sense of pride that comes from having a Purdue degree, because Purdue holds certain standards that maybe these online platforms do not. And that's why employers trust this Purdue degree or any other reputed university's degree. So our assessment process, our evaluation process has to be that strong. Only then can we be existing even as a university. Otherwise, maybe in a decade or so, the value of our university degrees will diminish completely, and maybe we will have extreme difficulty attracting students to our programs, unless it's a highly technical program that requires a university degree. But many other programs are not that technical, so you can learn about these programs through other sources, including AI probably. So I asked ChatGPT this morning what could institutions do address these challenges, and it came up with some suggestions like have clear AI policies, provide education training on how to use AI, have plagiarism detection tools, and again you would hopefully agree that these are not as issues that can easily be solved. Have robust methods and have consequences for students who use AI. But again, it doesn't necessarily address all those problems that we have touched upon in the discussion. So as far as my suggestions based on my experience so far would be to move from online to a hybrid format where we conduct the assessment at least in person, so that the integrity of the assessment process is maintained, and that way the pride that the university degree provides could still be retained, and employers can trust that the students went through an in-person assessment, which then gives them confidence that the student or the graduate essentially has the necessary knowledge, skills, and abilities. But what can we do as professors? And again, there are a number of suggestions that ChatGPT provided, which are listed. Have definitive expectations, emphasize on originality. Again, some of these suggestions are probably too generic, but and some are probably valid as well. But in terms of my input based on my training as a psychologist, as a professor of leadership, organizational leadership, we have to emphasize, of course, the importance of ethics and integrity, and this discussion needs to happen in classrooms. But again, that's not going to solve all our issues. One thing that will make a big difference until we have instituted the institutional changes is that we have to emphasize mastery over performance. So this is about intrinsic motivation. How do you enhance intrinsic motivation? That will be a long discussion, but a couple of examples could be like encouraging a growth mindset. And this is something that Carol Dweck, for instance, has researched immensely, and a simple thing like praising effort and progress instead of the abilities, or for that matter even performance, can shift the focus from performance orientation to a growth kind of mindset. Active learning activities, something that we at universities have always talked about, can be very beneficial, because that is something that can only we can provide at universities and not many of these online platforms. But related to that would be active assessment. So while we are doing or engaging in active learning exercises, we probably have to figure out ways of assessing students while they are engaging in those active learning exercises. So a much different form of assessment than what we are currently used to. The last point again is derived from the leadership literature. There is evidence when the professor makes an effort to have a personal connection with the students are much less likely to engage in any form of copying or unethical practices, because then they feel like they have let down the professor who had so much of trust in them. So we need to change our role just as a professor who is imparting knowledge and evaluating them, rather become a mentor. An effective leader is one who does a great balancing act between a taskmaster and also genuinely caring for the followers. And this is probably something that would be extremely important, where professors, of course, have to be taskmasters in terms of having high expectations, but make all those extra effort necessary to genuinely care for students, their well-being, so that students trust to come to them instead of taking the easy way route of relying on AI. And there are a whole host of other things that we can do, but these are some of the most important things that I thought we should be discussing. So in any case, I will stop my presentation here. Again, I must acknowledge that all the images that you saw here were actually created by AI by this particular website. So I will be happy to answer any questions that you may have.